Innate immunity is made up of physical barriers, different kinds of cells. For example, macrophages, natural killer cells, polymorpho-neutrophils. Okay, so neutrophils are also phagocytic cells. Macrophages are also phagocytes. Okay, so both are phagocytic cells which can kill and engulf the complete microorganisms, right? For example, bacteria, and can degrade them. Monocytes are kinds of cells which are present in blood circulation, but when they come into the tissue spaces, they are modified into macrophages. So monocytes and macrophages are same. Only difference is monocytes are small in size, they are immature cells, and they are present in the bloodstream. Once they come outside from the bloodstream, they will mature into macrophages. Their size will become large, and then they are mature enough to process the pathogens. Pathogen is any microorganism that can cause a disease, right? So we have discussed about physical barriers, which can be our skin and mucous membranes, which will try to protect us from various microorganisms and pathogens. Mucous membrane secretes some mucus substances or viscous substances, which will try to entrap these microorganisms. And finally, we are having cilia. Cilia are present over the epithelial cells, and they will try to remove the dust particles or some pathogens, microorganisms from the respiratory tract as well as from the GI tract, gastrointestinal tract, right? We are having cells, different kinds of cells, which will actively take part in protecting us from various foreigner microorganisms or pathogens, which can cause severe infection. And there are chemical barriers. We have studied about pH. There are some lipids and enzymes, for example, lysozyme, lactoferrin. All these enzymes will help in degradation of bacterial cells, for example, their cell wall. तो ये भी हम लोग कल डिस्कस कर रहे थे. ओके, सो वैसे तो कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है अगर सब कुछ ठीक है. सो स्किन कैन प्रोटेक्ट अस फ्रॉम वेरियस माइक्रोऑर्गेनिजम्स, but suppose there is an injury or there is a breach in the tissue or there is a tissue damage. So what will happen after injury? A large number of bacteria can enter into the skin or into the tissue spaces, right? So it is the requirement that these bacterial cells should be removed from these tissue spaces. So इसके लिए क्या होता है, सबसे पहले जो cells हैं वो कुछ cytokines को secrete करती हैं, जिनकी वजह से vasoactive factors, यानी कि they will increase the capillary permeability so that these cells which are there in the circulation can come out of the capillaries or the blood vessels. Okay, so the blood vessels are having coverings of endothelial cells. Small spaces are created between the endothelial cells so that these cells, for example, neutrophils, monocytes, and lymphocytes can come out of circulation at the site of injury or at the site of inflammation. So you can see redness because there is increased blood supply in this particular area where you are having injury. There is also swelling because there is swelling or inflammation because there are large number of cells in this particular area. Therefore, you can recognize by these symptoms like swelling, redness. The temperature is increased because various cells will try to remove these bacterial cells continuously. Okay, so the first type of cells which will reach to the site of infection or inflammation are neutrophils, right? These neutrophils will bind to the endothelial membrane, and then they will come out of the blood vessel or capillary by a process known as extravasation, as the process by which they will squeeze out of this layer, right? This capillary. Okay, so this extravasation is followed by the chemotaxis. Chemotaxis is the movement of cells towards the site where there is infectious particles or antigens, right? For example, bacteria in this case. So there are two major processes. One is extravasation, one is known as chemotaxis. Then we also have discussed about the cytokines. Cytokines are low molecular weight proteins or small peptides, which will be released by these cells of innate immune system, and then they will activate the cells of adaptive immunity, for example, B cells and T cells. Finally, these B cell will be developed into the plasma cells. They will secrete antibodies. So this antibody mediated response is known as humoral immunity, right? And some cytokines will activate the T cells. T cell will be responsible for secreting large number of cytokines. They will uh, activate these cells of innate immune system further. And finally, this innate immunity and adaptive immunity, that is also known as acquired immunity, will together or in coordination will work together, and they will finally remove all the infectious particles or agents out of body to recover from an infectious state to the normal state. So our immune system is having two major roles. What are the two major roles? So whenever there is a foreign material or foreign particle or pathogen, it will be uptaken by the macrophages and phagocytic cells, for example, neutrophils, and it will be processed. Then the processed particles or antigens will be represented to antigen sensitive cells, for example, uh, various cells which can recognize the processed antigens or bacteria. It will lead to the activation of two branches of immune system. So it is comprised of cell mediated immunity as well as antibody mediated immunity. So this branch is known as humoral response. The second branch, which is cell mediated, is known as uh, cell mediated immunity, right? So, okay, and this is a major immunity which is also taking active part in graft rejection or tissue rejection whenever there is transplant of any tissue or organ. It will be rejected by this process of cell mediated immune response. So both are responsible for removing the foreign material, for example, bacteria or pathogens out of our body. Now, our immune system is actually having two major tasks. See here. So one is immune system is having two major tasks. It must protect individuals against infectious agents which were invading the body from outside. Okay. So any infectious particle or pathogen which is coming from outside, which is non-self, so our immune system have to look into the matter or protect the individuals, protecting us against infectious agents or foreigners invading the body from outside. And at the same time, it must prevent the development of abnormal cells, for example, cancerous cells or tumors, right? So there are two responsibilities, major responsibilities of immune system. First of all, it will not allow any foreign particle or cell, for example, bacteria or some infectious particle, for example, pathogen, to enter into the body from outside. At the same time, it will also look upon body cells which are not regulated or which are transformed cells. For example, cancerous cells which are showing unregulated proliferation, right? So body try to remove these abnormal cells before they can cause severe consequences, for example, tumor or cancer. Molecules that induce the immune response are known as antigens. So these molecules which are coming from outside, which are provoking our immune system to make an reaction or a response, they are known as antigens. And because antigens are responsible for the production of antibodies, both terms are related. So antigen antibody uh, binding, or they are very specific complement to each other. There are two types of immune responses. One is mediated by proteins known as antibodies. These antibodies are specific to these antigens, is responsible for resistance to the infectious agents found in the body fluids. Therefore, this is known as humoral immunity. And there is second type that is called cell-mediated immunity or CMI. The other mediated by the cells called lymphocytes. These lymphocytes, these are major lymphocytes are T cells or natural killer cells. They are responsible for destruction of abnormal cells, for example, which can lead to the cancer or unregulated cells production. Such abnormal cells include cancer cells and virally infected cells, because we know, we have studied in microbiology that some viruses can infect cells, because viruses are intracellular parasites and they are obligate intracellular parasites. They can only multiply within the cells, within the living cells. And some viruses are having the property, they can transform the cells from normal cells to malignant cells or abnormal cells, uh, which can multiply unregulatedly or in an unchecked way, and finally they will lead to a condition known as cancer. The immune system does not usually react against normal body components. So that's what I wanted to tell in this particular diagram also. This is known as self-tolerance. Our immune system will not react. If it is working fine, it will not react with the host molecules, host particles. It will recognize self from non-self. So therefore, our immune system is self components. It will not it will tolerant to the self components, right? It will not react against the components of the host body. Therefore, it is very, very important to recognize self versus non-self, because if our body or immune system is unable to recognize the self from non-self particles, it will start destroying the host body, and this will lead to autoimmune diseases. So there are some diseases in which the immune system is not working fine, and it will start recognizing the components of host body, and it will try to decompose host. It will try to harm host. Okay, so first of all, I will remove this. Okay, so the development of immunology is very, very interesting. I will tell you a story how this immunology was developed. Okay, so there were some deadly diseases, as I showed you some data in last class. So look into this particular table. I'm having a table so that you can understand some of the diseases which were most feared, right? For example, smallpox, cholera, chickenpox, all these diseases, they are deadly diseases. They have killed a major population in humans, right? For example, smallpox, diphtheria, measles, mumps, pertussis, tetanus, all these diseases having a major impact on the society. And these diseases, due to these diseases, a large number of humans uh, died because there was no cure at that time. Okay, so smallpox was one of the most feared. सबसे ज्यादा जो खतरनाक diseases में से थी वो थी smallpox, चेचक. Okay, so not only did it kill a huge number of people, but also survivors were scared for their life uh, because they were having the disfiguring pock marks over their entire body. So first of all, these diseases, for example, smallpox, was very deadly disease. Mostly it will lead to the death of patient, but if somehow the patient is able to survive, it will leave that particular patient disfigured for life. तो एक्चुअली क्या होता था, उसकी पूरी बॉडी पे डिसफिगरिंग मार्क्स हो जाते थे, पॉक मार्क्स. Okay, so the Chinese determined about the beginning of 11th century. So 11th century के beginning में Chinese ने इस disease को, smallpox को क्योर करने की स्ट्रेटेजी बनाई. ओके, तो वो लोग क्या करते थे, they have noticed this, that the person which have survived the smallpox will not receive the disease second time. तो एक बार जिसको स्मॉल पॉक्स या चेचक हो जाती थी, उसको दोबारा से वो डिजीज नहीं होती थी. ये जो करेक्टरिस्टिक थी, फर्स्ट टाइम चाइनीज ने ऑब्जर्व की, और उसके बेसिस पे उन्होंने एक ट्रीटमेंट सजेस्ट करा. ओके, सो it therefore became accepted practice in ancient China to infect young children with smallpox. तो अगर किसी भी छोटे बच्चे को अगर अगर ट्रीट किया जाए स्मॉल पॉक्स के ड्राइड क्रस्ट, यानी कि जो स्कब्स होते थे, यानी कि जो उनके स्कैब होते थे, क्रस्ट लाइक स्ट्रक्चर्स विच आर प्रेजेंट ओवर द सरफेस ऑफ एन over the skin. So they collected these peels, they have crushed them, and they have applied these powders from smallpox patients to the infants. So the scabs from the pox on the skin of an infected person were either put up the nose of the infant or they were rubbed into the scratches, right? तो ज्यादातर वो लोग क्या करते थे, या तो उस पाउडर को उसको क्रश करके डायरेक्टली जो इन्फेंट होते थे उनकी नोज में, या फिर उनको रब करके उनकी स्किन को हल्का सा बोल सकते हैं पंचर करके या कट करके उसमें उस पाउडर को रख देते थे. जिससे क्या होता था, सो दैट दीज इन्फेंट कैन develop the symptoms of the disease, or they can make antibodies against a smallpox virus, right? तो एक्चुअली क्या होता था, ये जो प्रोसीजर था, दिस इज नोन एज वेरियोलेशन, राइट? वैक्सीनेशन बाद में डेवलप हुआ, वैक्सीनेशन बाद में आया जब लोगों ने वैक्सीन बनाना स्टार्ट करा. सो वैक्सीन, व्हाट इज वैक्सीन? वैक्सीन इज द वीकेंड फॉर्म ऑफ एनी एंटीजन, जिसमें किसी भी पैथोजन को उसकी वीक फॉर्म में एडमिनिस्टर किया जाता है. लेकिन एक्चुअली चाइनीज क्या कर रहे थे, चाइनीज उस टाइम पे डायरेक्टली जो स्मॉल पॉक्स के पेशेंट थे उनकी स्किन से जो ड्राइड क्रस्ट होते थे, पील लाइक स्ट्रक्चर्स होते थे, उनको क्रश करके डायरेक्टली इंजेक्ट कर रहे थे इन्फेंट्स में. और इन्फेंट्स का जो इम्यून सिस्टम होता है वो इतना स्ट्रांग नहीं होता, तो कई बार क्या होता था इस प्रोसीजर में, इट वाज वेरी very, I can say, what I should say, this is not correct in today's point of view. Okay, अभी हम ऐसे नहीं कर सकते. In today's world, in our society, we cannot perform this procedure now. But at that time, because at that time around 11th century, there was no treatment for this particular disease. Therefore, they need to find a solution so that they can protect their infants, they can protect human, right? तो वो लोग डायरेक्टली क्या करते थे, इन्फेंट्स को ही ट्रीट करवाते थे, उसको वेरियुलेशन बोलते थे. प्रोसेस इज नोन एज वेरियुलेशन, इन विच डायरेक्टली द पाउडर और द क्रस्ट आर अप्लाइड टू एन इन्फेंट. कई बार क्या होता था कि जो इन्फेंट थे वो डिजीज को डेवलप कर लेते थे, यानी उनमें स्मॉल पॉक्स हो जाता था और उसकी वजह से उनकी डेथ भी हो जाती थी. लेकिन वो लोग एक चीज मानते थे कि अगर मान लो किसी इन्फेंट की डेथ होती है तो एटलीस्ट, क्योंकि ये स्मॉल पॉक्स उस टाइम पे बहुत ही ज्यादा सीवियर था और इसकी वजह से बहुत ज्यादा डेथ्स होती थी, तो चाइनीज लोग ऐसे मानते थे कि एटलीस्ट अगर इन्फेंट की डेथ हो जाती है स्मॉल पॉक्स से, तो जो एक्सपेंसेस उसके पेरेंट्स करेंगे उसके ऊपर, पेरेंट्स एटलीस्ट उस एक्सपेंसेस से बच जाएंगे. And the second thing is, if a child or an infant develop the disease and recover, so it will not develop the disease in entire lifetime. तो एक तरह से दो चीजें थी, या तो उसकी डेथ हो जाए, डेथ हो जाएगी तो क्या होगा, उसके पेरेंट्स को उसके ऊपर एक्सपेंसेस नहीं करने पड़ेंगे, राइट? भाई बाद में मरने से अच्छा है वो पहले ही उसकी डेथ हो जाए. Second was, at least if he or she is able to recover from the disease, so he will become resistant and will not develop the disease again. तो चाइनीज लोगों ने इसको अराउंड 11th सेंचुरी में डेवलप करा, वेरियुलेशन. देन दिस वेरियुलेशन went into the west countries, where in 1718 Lady Mary Montagu, which is she is a wife of English ambassador. Okay, so she belongs to a rich family, but actually she has faced the smallpox, and she was it is heard that she was very beautiful, but due to smallpox there were disfiguring marks all over her face. So she wanted to protect her children from the disease. Therefore, she decided that she will apply the technique of variolation over her children. तो ये एक ऐसी लेडी थी which tried to apply the variolation, because उस टाइम पे वेस्ट में कोई भी इस प्रोसीजर को नहीं कर रहा था, ज्यादातर चाइनीज लोग ही वेरियोलेशन को अपने इन्फेंट्स पे अप्लाई करते थे. तो लेडी मैरी मॉन्टाग्यू ने पहली बार वेरियुलेशन को अपने खुद के बच्चों में अप्लाई करने का सोचा. ओके, हर own face is said to have been scared by the smallpox, so she had a special interest in the disease, and therefore she never wanted that her children face the disease, right? So she applied the same procedure over her children, and finally she is able to successfully able to protect them from the smallpox. बहुत सारे लोगों ने उसको अपोज भी करा, कुछ जो उसकी सोसाइटी में लोग थे, कुछ लोग ये बोलते थे कि जो क्रिश्चियंस होते हैं उनमें वेरियुलेशन काम नहीं करता, ये केवल चाइनीज लोगों पे ही काम करता है. बट फाइनली शी प्रूव्ड दैट, एंड शी इज एबल टू प्रोटेक्ट her children from the smallpox disease. Okay, then this variolation, why this process is known as variolation? So variolation, variola virus, this variola is the virus which is responsible for causing the disease known as smallpox. And in Latin, this word variola is for smallpox. So therefore this is known as variolation, to remove the to remove the danger of smallpox is known as variolation. Spread rapidly in England, where Queen Anne's son and here have recently died from the smallpox. Actually हुआ क्या था, क्वीन जो एनी थी, उसके बेटे और उसके जो रिलेटिव्स थे, उनकी भी डेथ हो गई थी स्मॉल पॉक्स से, इसलिए उन्होंने भी इस प्रोसीजर को, इस वेरियोलेशन को एंथुसियाज्म के साथ एक्सेप्ट कर लिया. ठीक है. सो ऑल्सो जॉर्ज वॉशिंगटन in America, in USA, George Washington ordered all his troops to be inoculated in 1776. 1776 में जॉर्ज वॉशिंगटन ने अपनी पूरी आर्मी को अलाउ कर दिया और उन्हें बोला कि वो सभी जो हैं वेरियोलेशन प्रोसीजर को करें, so that they can be protected from the smallpox. फाइनली धीरे धीरे क्या हुआ कि लोगों को समझ आना शुरू हो गया कि जो डिजीज है उसके कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस को कम किया जा सकता है अगर किसी पर्सन को, किसी ह्यूमन को ऑलरेडी हम काउपॉक्स के वायरस से एनकाउंटर करवाएं तो. ओके. देन फाइनली इन 1774 देयर वाज एन इंग्लिश फार्मर नोन एज बेंजामिन जेस्टी. एक बेंजामिन जेस्टी नाम के फार्मर थे. उन्होंने क्या करा, उन्होंने instead of applying this smallpox pustules or scabs to his children, इन्होंने क्या करा, उनकी काऊ को एक डिजीज हो गई थी जिसको बोलते थे काऊ पॉक्स, और उन्होंने जो लिक्विड था, जो काऊ पॉक्स का लिक्विड था, उसको अपने बच्चों में इंजेक्ट करने का प्लान बनाया. तो उन्होंने देखा कि बिकॉज जो काऊ पॉक्स होती है ये ह्यूमंस में भी होती है, लेकिन इट इज नॉट as much as harmful, it is not as severe as smallpox. So cowpox ke Benjamin Jesty used dried scab material from a case of cowpox to variolate his children in the belief that this would protect them against the smallpox. Right. तो धीरे धीरे ये प्रोसीजर, जो वेरियोलेशन का प्रोसीजर था, वो फाइनली स्मॉल पॉक्स के पेशेंट से पहले हम ये ड्राइड स्कैब ले रहे थे. अब ये जो बेंजामिन जेस्टी थे, इन्होंने काउपॉक्स के पॉस्चूल जो थे, काउपॉक्स का ड्राइड मटेरियल था, ड्राइड स्कैब था, उस मटेरियल से अपने बच्चों को वेरियोलेट करा और उन्हें बिलीव था, एक विश्वास था कि ये जो प्रोसीजर है इससे उनके बच्चे स्मॉल पॉक्स के लिए रेजिस्टेंट हो जाएंगे. राइट. लेकिन क्योंकि वो एक फार्मर थे, उन्होंने कभी भी अपने वर्क को एक डिस्कवरी नहीं माना और ना ही कोई पेपर पब्लिश करा. Therefore, we know nothing about Benjamin Jesty. We only know about Edward Jenner. So Edward Jenner is known as father of immunology because Edward Jenner was a physician. In 1798, see the difference. In 1774, the Benjamin Jesty already used this procedure to protect his children. Then in 1798, Edward Jenner, which was a physician, he learned about the use of cowpox from one of his patients. This patient was a relative of Benjamin Jesty. So when Benjamin Jesty told his relatives also about the same procedure so that they can also protect their children against the smallpox. So the physician learned about this use of cowpox from one of his patients and decided to investigate the matter. And because he was a physician, he was a doctor by profession, he understand that what can actually happen, how this cowpox can help in developing the resistance against the cowpox, against the smallpox, right? So Jenner conducted many experiments and eventually confirmed that exposure to the dried cowpox scab could indeed safely protect the humans against smallpox. Finally उन्होंने कुछ experiments करे और finally prove कर दिया कि actually हम cowpox के material को use कर सकते हैं और ह्यूमंस को स्मॉल पॉक्स से बचा सकते हैं. So what was the experiment? Experiment was this is not the experiment, this is the second experiment. So unlike JST, he published his results and received the credit for the discovery of this technique is known as vaccination. Okay, so because उसने अपने results को, अपनी experiments को एक paper में publish कर दिया, और इसलिए the father of vaccination is known as Edward Jenner, not the Benjamin JST. Vaccination, VACA term is, VACA means cow, because we were using the cowpox scabs or cowpox material to protect humans against smallpox. Therefore, the term was given as vaccination. VACA for cow, in Latin word for cow, right? So rapidly replace the variolation as the preferred method of protecting humans against smallpox, right? So variolation was replaced, vaccination practice में आ गया, right? So vaccination is the use of vaccine or some other weakened pathogens to protect a human from any disease. Were so successful in reducing the smallpox mortality that a population explosion result. Actually क्या था कि बहुत सारी deaths हो जाती थी जिसकी वजह से population नहीं बढ़ पाती थी smallpox की वजह से. Smallpox was so deadly because it will lead to high mortality, right? लेकिन अब क्या हो रहा था, वैक्सीनेशन डेवलप हो गया था, लोगों की डेथ कम हो रही थी और फाइनली पॉपुलेशन बढ़ने लगी. This in turn has a major social consequences, and since it provided the labor for the new factories of the industrial revolution. बहुत सारे लोगों को लेबर मिलने लगी तो इंडस्ट्रियल रिवॉल्यूशन हो गया. इन 1958 वर्ल्ड हेल्थ ऑर्गेनाइजेशन डिसाइड टू, फिर फाइनली 1958 में डब्ल्यूएचओ ने डिसाइड करा क्यों ना स्मॉल पॉक्स को एक मास वैक्सीनेशन प्रोग्राम चलाया जाए और पूरे वर्ल्ड में जितने भी कंट्रीज हैं सभी को वैक्सीनेट कर दिया जाए. सो दिस मास वैक्सीनेशन is able to eradicate the smallpox from the earth around 1980s, right? So had become the first infectious disease which has been eradicated from the earth. Finally smallpox को पूरी तरीके से खत्म कर दिया गया है अर्थ से, right? So as a result of these mass vaccination programs which were launched by WHO, World Health Organization. Okay, so one thing is Edward Jenner, in spite of the discovery of vaccination against smallpox in the late 18th century by Edward Jenner, it was not suspected that this type of approach could be used to protect against other infectious diseases. तो smallpox अकेली disease नहीं थी, और भी बहुत सारी diseases थी जिनकी वजह से death हो रही थी, जैसे tetanus, cholera, okay, so anthrax. These diseases are also very harmful. They are very deadly diseases, and they are responsible for large number of deaths. But किसी ने ये सोचा नहीं था कि वैक्सीनेशन से दूसरी डिजीजेस को भी कंट्रोल किया जा सकता है. Although a few unsuccessful attempts were made to use cowpox to cure unrelated skin diseases, cowpox को ही दूसरी skin diseases को treat करने के लिए कुछ लोगों ने use करा, लेकिन उन्हें success नहीं मिली, क्योंकि हमें पता है cowpox और जो smallpox हैं, they are relative viruses. They belong to the same family, and their morphology is very relative. Okay, so if you apply cowpox material, it will protect the human against smallpox. So it was not until almost 100 years later that another significant advance occurred. उसके बाद 1879 में, around 100 years after, फ्रांस में लुइस पास्चर ने कुछ experiments करे. So you are able to see this particular chicken experiment. This was performed by Louis Pasteur. तो इन्होंने actually क्या करा? This is also a very interesting story. एक बार लुइस पास्चर ने अपने असिस्टेंट को, जिनका नाम था चार्ल्स चैम्बरलैंड, को बोला कि कुछ चिकन्स जो फ्रेश चिकन्स आए हैं उनको वैक्सीनेट करना है, उनको उनके पास एक कल्चर था। जो कल्चर क्या था? द लुइस पास्चर वाज स्टडीइंग द बैक्टीरियम दैट कॉज द डिजीज इन चिकन्स कॉल्ड फाउल कॉलरा। सो चिकन्स यानी कि चिकन में एक स्पेशल डिजीज होती है जिसको बोलते हैं फाउल कॉलरा। इसका जो बैक्टीरियल पैथोजन होता है, दिस इज नोन एज पास्चुरेला मल्टोसिडा, राइट? दिस बैक्टीरियम इज रेस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर दिस डिजीज फाउल कॉलरा। पास्चर ने इसका एक कल्चर, प्योर कल्चर डेवलप कर लिया था। तो उसने अपने असिस्टेंट को बोला कि उनसे कुछ चिकन्स को इस फ्रेश कल्चर से ट्रीट करना है। और ये बोल के पास्चर कुछ टाइम के लिए वैकेशन पे चले गए। लेकिन चार्ल्स चैम्बरलैंड उस दिन वो वैक्सीनेट करना भूल गए और उसके बाद वो भी वैकेशंस पे कुछ टाइम के लिए फॉर सेवरल वीक्स वो भी वैकेशन पे चले गए, राइट? सो बोथ लेफ्ट द कल्चर ऑन बेंच. So let's read this because this is written, every line is very interesting. Pasture possessed a culture of this bacterium that when injected into the chicken, अगर वो पास्चर उस कल्चर को किसी भी चिकन में इंजेक्ट करते थे तो कंसिस्टेंटली कॉज इन्फेक्शन होता था, फॉल कॉलरा होता था और फाइनली चिकन की डेथ हो जाती थी, किल देम. One afternoon, he told his assistant Charles Chamberlain to infect some of the birds with the culture. Since it was very late in the day and he was about to go on a vacation, Chamberlain decided to postpone the experiment. Chamberlain ने बोला कि चलो ठीक है, अभी नहीं करते, वैकेशन से वापस आएंगे उसके बाद में इसको वैक्सीनेशन को करेंगे. ओके, until he returned, जब तक कि वो वापस नहीं आ जाते. As a result, chicken eventually received an injection of bacterial culture that had remained on the bench for several weeks. तो दोनों वैकेशंस पे चले गए और वो जो कल्चर था कई वीक्स तक, कई हफ्ता तक, सप्ताह तक बेंच पे ही पड़ा रहा, जिसकी वजह से क्या हुआ, उसके जो न्यूट्रिएंट थे वो खत्म हो गए और जो पैथोजन थे वो वीक हो गए, है ना? So this weakened form of pathogen is finally injected into few chickens. The inoculated chickens remained healthy. तो क्योंकि जो पैथोजन थे वो ऑलरेडी वीक हो चुके थे, जो बैक्टीरिया थे वो डिजीज कॉज करने की कंडीशन में नहीं थे, therefore the inoculated chicken remained healthy. इसलिए जिन भी चिकन्स को वो इंजेक्शन लगे उन्हें कोई भी डिजीज नहीं हुई. पास्चर ने इसके बाद सोचा कि चलो ठीक है, कोई नहीं, फ्रेश कल्चर इंजेक्ट करके देखते हैं. Pasteur then decided to inject these chicken with a second dose of bacteria from a fresh bacterial culture. To the Pasteur's surprise, the birds survived this second dose without becoming ill. पास्चर ने देखा कि, और ये एक सरप्राइज था क्योंकि जिन चिकन्स को जिन को ऑलरेडी वीकेंड फॉर्म ऑफ पैथोजन ऑलरेडी इंजेक्ट करा था, जिनमें कोई डिजीज नहीं हुई थी, तो उनमें फ्रेश कल्चर इंजेक्ट करा गया तो उनको कोई भी डिजीज नहीं हुई और उनकी डेथ भी नहीं हुई. यहाँ तक कि वो बीमार भी नहीं हुए. they even did not shown any symptoms of illness. So Pasteur then decided to inject this chicken with the fresh culture. The Pasteur surprised, the birds survived the second dose without becoming ill. Pasteur, with remarkable insight, recognized that this phenomenon was identical in principle to the vaccination. Pasteur ने, because Pasteur was a scientist, उसने वैक्सीनेशन के बारे में पढ़ रखा था और जो वैक्सीनेशन था वो लगभग 100 years पहले एडवर्ड जेनर ने स्मॉल पॉक्स के लिए यूज करा था, राइट? तो उन्हें वैक्सीनेशन का आइडिया था. उसने देखा कि ये जो कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स हैं जो एनिमल शो कर रहे हैं, जो चिकन्स को डिजीज नहीं हो रही है, इट इज वेरी सिमिलर टू द वैक्सीनेशन प्रोग्राम. तो इसलिए उन्होंने बाय इंजेक्टिंग दिस चिकन विद अ एज्ड कल्चर ऑफ बैक्टीरिया, दिस एज्ड कल्चर बैक्टीरिया कैन बी यूज्ड एज अ वैक्सीन बिकॉज इट इज हैविंग वीकेंड पैथोजन. लेकिन सभी डिजीजेस के लिए ये ट्रू नहीं है. सभी डिजीजेस के लिए हम एज्ड कल्चर ऑफ बैक्टीरिया या पैथोजन को वैक्सीन की फॉर्म में यूज नहीं कर सकते. He had protected them against disease caused by a fresh culture of the same organism. Then once he had established the general principle of vaccination, तो जो father जो बोल सकते हैं founder of immunology is Louis Pasteur, क्योंकि इन्होंने जो पहली वैक्सीन बनाई थी humans के लिए वो एंथ्रेक्स थी, but he also did several experiments for fall cholera, right? And from this he got the idea for the second disease, anthrax. Once he had established the general principle of vaccination, Pasteur tried to apply it to other infectious diseases. He first produced a vaccine against anthrax, a disease caused by bacterium called Bacillus anthracis. Bacillus anthracis एक दूसरी disease cause करता था, that is known as anthrax, which is also very uh, lethal, right? So Pasteur found that he could not make this organism safe by aging it in the laboratory bench. उसने देखा कि अगर कल्चर को कुछ टाइम के लिए, कुछ वीक्स के लिए अगर बेंच पे लीव कर दें, छोड़ दें, तो ये वैक्सीन की तरह से यूज नहीं किया जा सकता है, क्योंकि अगर उसको इंजेक्ट करते थे तो क्या होता था, जो एक्सपेरिमेंटल एनिमल था उसकी डेथ हो जाती थी। तो उसने कहा कि इसको वीक करने के लिए एटलीस्ट क्या कर सकते हैं, इसको कुछ टाइम के लिए हीट कर लेते हैं। ओके, सो ही मेड द फर्स्ट वैक्सीन, एंथ्रेक्स वैक्सीन, बाय हीटिंग द कल्चर ऑफ बैक्टीरिया। बैक्टीरिया वाज बैसिलस एंथ्रेसिस। सो but he could do so by growing it at an unusually high temperature. तो उसने एक हाई टेम्परेचर पे उस कल्चर को ग्रो करा और उसने वैक्सीन फाइनली, जब एनिमल में उस वैक्सीन को इंजेक्ट करा तो डेथ्स नहीं हुई, और जब फ्रेश कल्चर दोबारा से एज अ सेकंड डोज वाज injected into the same experimental animal which has received the vaccine or the weakened form of the pathogen, did not develop any disease. So that's how he was able to establish the principle of vaccination. जबकि प्रॉब्लम क्या थी, एडवर्ड जेनर ने वैक्सीनेशन को इंट्रोड्यूस करा था, बट ही हैज नो आइडिया हाउ द वैक्सीनेशन इज वर्किंग. Louis Pasteur was the first scientist who also gave the valid reason how this vaccination is working. एडवर्ड जेनर ने क्या बोला, एडवर्ड जेनर ने बोला कि जो वैक्सीन, जो ये हम काउ पॉक्स से जो स्मॉल पॉक्स को ट्रीट कर रहे हैं, काउ पॉक्स क्या होता है कि, ओके, सो लेट्स रीड इट. So Pasteur found that could not make this organism safe by growing at, okay, so he finally used the high temperature to grow the pathogen and make the vaccine, successful vaccine for this. A few years after, he developed the second vaccine, that is for rabies, and protected one. Okay, so finally, Louis Pasteur can therefore be considered as the founder of science of immunology, because he had developed the vaccine for anthrax. He also talked in terms of fowl cholera, and he have developed the vaccine for rabies, right? Pasteur, although remarkably successful in developing effective vaccine, had little concept of mechanism which is involved in this process. तो जो लुइस पास्चर थे, उन्होंने वैक्सीन तो डेवलप कर दी, लेकिन उन्हें इस बात का आइडिया नहीं था कि ये वैक्सीन वर्क कैसे करती है. ओके, उन्होंने क्या सजेस्ट करा, ही सजेस्टेड दैट द ऑर्गेनिज्म इन द वैक्सीन removed essential nutrients from the body and thus prevent the subsequent growth of the disease causing agents. उन्होंने बताया कि जो वैक्सीन है, जो वीकेंड पैथोजन है, अगर हम उन्हें बॉडी में इंजेक्ट करते हैं तो वो उन सभी न्यूट्रिएंट्स को रिमूव कर देते हैं बॉडी से जो उसकी डेवलपमेंट के लिए नेसेसरी हैं. इसलिए जब सेकंड डोज दी जाती है तो उन जो सेकंड सब्सिक्वेंट ग्रोथ नहीं हो पाती डिजीज कॉजिंग एजेंट्स की या पैथोजेंस की. It was in Berlin about 10 years later in 1890s when Emil von Behring and Tsubasaburo Kitasato, these two scientists in the 1890s, first established that the protection induced by vaccination was not due to the removal of nutrients, but it was associated with the appearance of protective factors in the blood, जिन्हें antibodies बोलते हैं, right? तो उन्होंने पहली बार एमिल वॉन बेरिंग और सुभाषा बुरोकिटासाटो ने ये बताया, और एमिल वॉन बेरिंग को ही पहला नोबेल प्राइज मिला 1901 में इम्यूनोलॉजी में। जो पहला नोबेल प्राइज अवार्ड हुआ दैट वाज एमिल वॉन बेरिंग, क्योंकि उन्होंने पहली बार ये प्रूव करा कि जो वैक्सीनेशन है उसकी वजह से जो रिमूवल होता है, दिस इज नॉट ड्यू टू द रिमूवल ऑफ न्यूट्रिएंट्स, बट it was associated with the appearance of protective factors that are known as antibodies in the blood. धीरे धीरे लोगों को पता चला कि एंटीबॉडीज कहाँ से आती हैं, एंटीजन एंटीबॉडी रेस्पॉन्सेज कैसे होते हैं, सेल मीडिएटेड इम्यूनिटी क्या है, all these things. They called these factors as antibodies. So the term was given by these two scientists on the antibodies. A few years later, Paul Ehrlich had proved the antibodies could protect animals against the foreign toxins other than those found in the bacteria. For example, ricin toxin and castor beans. So the one thing was antibodies. Antibodies are present in the blood or in the serum, right? So I hope you understand the differences between serum and plasma. Both are fractions of blood, but serum is, so let me tell you, first thing is serum. So serum versus plasma, right? Both are different because actually both are components of blood. If you clot the blood and ultimately the clot will shrink, and if you collect the liquid after clotting the blood, that liquid is known as serum. And plasma is if you take the blood in a test tube, right? You are having a test tube and if you centrifuge this, if it is having blood, for example, if you centrifuge this blood, what will you do? You will have blood in this particular test tube, right? If you centrifuge the blood, what will happen? You will see a clump at the bottom. What will happen? A palate will form. This palate will have all the cells which were present in the blood. For example, red blood cells, white blood cells, platelets, they will come in the palate, right? And also you will line this you will add some anticoagulant to this particular tube. You will line this tube with some anticoagulant so that blood will not clot. So finally the blood will not clot, the clot formation will not taking place, and when you centrifuge this at in the centrifuge, when you centrifuge this tube, the cells will come in the bottom in form of palate. And now if you remove this liquid, the supernatant, this is known as plasma, right? So the plasma is actually having clotting factors, but serum is not having clotting factors. So serum is portion of blood which do not have clotting factors, for example fibrinogen, because we already clotted the blood, and this clot is utilize the clotting factors. But in plasma we are adding some kind of anticoagulant, for example heparin, which will not allow the coagulation of blood. So when you centrifuge this blood, the cells will form a palate, and if you remove the supernatant, the supernatant or the liquid portion is known as plasma. So if you add some anticoagulant, for example heparin, it will give you plasma. So there is a difference between serum and plasma in terms of presence of clotting factor. Serum do not have clotting factors, but plasma do have clotting factors, right? So antibodies can be detected in the serum. If you clot the blood, even in the serum, you will have antibodies. All right. So one thing we have discussed is the antibody mediated immune response, that is also known as humoral response. Second, we have discussed the cell mediated immune response. So these cells are present, and these cells are known as lymphocytes, and these lymphocytes are present in spleen. So if you, this is a donor of graft. So for example, you took a normal mouse, you took a graft from some donor and you add this graft to this recipient. After some week, what will you see? That there is graft rejection. There is graft rejection. So this is known as first set reactions. The first time if the graft is rejected, it is known as first set reactions. If the second time, if you add the graft from the same animal to the same animal who have rejected the graft, is known as second set of reactions. And the second set of reactions are very severe reactions. It may lead to the death of that party. And so it will take less time, and the graft is rejected within no time. If you remove the spleen from this mice, which is showing first set reactions, you remove the spleen cells in a tube, you injected into some normal mice this culture which you have, which you cells you have removed from the spleen, you have injected these cells into some healthy mice. And if you add the graft again from some donor skin graft, so it will show second set of reactions, not the first set of reactions. So it will prove that the spleen will have some kind of cells which will protect the individual against the foreign tissue or graft. And finally, it will be rejected. It will show second set of reactions. So this is known as adoptive immunity, adoptive transfer of immunity. If you remove the cells from the spleen and you inject into some normal mice, this is known as adoptive immunity, right? This we have already discussed about the tolerance. Our immune system should be self-tolerant. If it is not self-tolerant, then it may lead to some diseases. Okay, so here we have discussed this also. If our immune system is not tolerant, not self-tolerant, then this may lead to the autoimmune diseases. So if there is any error targeting the self proteins or tissues by the immune cells or immune system in the same host, then it will lead to autoimmune diseases. Our immune system will start reacting with our components of our body, particles or components of our body. If our immune system will not work very fine, it may result into hypersensitivity, that is also known as allergy, right? Or if our immune system is weak, then it will result into immune deficiency. This is known as immunodeficiency, right? So, for example, which will happen in the case of HIV infection, because the HIV virus will damage the immune system, and therefore we will have immune deficiency, immunodeficiency, right? In our last class, we had discussed about lysozyme, lactoferrin, immunoglobulin A, and all these things. Then we have chemical mediators, complement proteins, cytokines, and chemokines, right? We also have discussed in our previous class the pattern recognition molecules. So we need to discuss them in detail. So many molecules involved in innate immunity have the ability to recognize pathogen associated molecular patterns. These are known as PAMPs. In our previous class, we have discussed about pathogen associated molecular patterns that are known as PAMPs. And so page number 155 in your QA. In previous class, I told you there are some surface molecules which should be recognized to bind specifically. So in gram-negative bacteria, these are lipopolysaccharides, endotoxins, right? LPS layer. And I also told you that these lipopolysaccharides are recognized by one of the toll-like receptor. This is known as TLR4. Toll-like receptor 4 will recognize your LPS or lipopolysaccharide, which will be a kind of endotoxin. We also have discussed the toxic component in this lipopolysaccharide is known as lipid A, right? And TLR2 will recognize the cell wall, that is peptidoglycan, TLR2. Right, so TLR2 will recognize gram-positive peptidoglycan cell wall, whereas TLR4 will recognize the lipopolysaccharide in the gram-negative bacteria. So the TLR is a kind of pattern recognition receptor that is also known as pattern recognition receptors, right? PPRs. These can be toll-like receptors, right? And the second thing is these molecules which are present over the surface of pathogen, these are known as pathogen associated molecular patterns, PAMPs. So the PAMP will bind specifically with the PRR or the toll-like receptors. And one thing you should know, they are present over, for example, macrophages. Macrophages or the immune cells, PAMs, they are present over pathogens because they are pathogen associated molecular patterns. Pathogens are disease causing agents, right? So there should be specific binding between the PAMP and the PRR. PRR, for example, toll-like receptor. So here also it is given that intensive work over the last decade have identified the TLR family as one of 13 TLR that function as pattern recognition receptor have been identified in these species. TLR 1 to 10 are conserved between mice and humans, although TLR 10 is not functional in mice, right? Yesterday also I told you that in humans the 1 to 10 are present, whereas in mice TLR 10 is not non-functional, and therefore 1 to 9 and 11 to 13 there are 12 TLR present in case of mice, while TLR 11 13 are expressed in mice but not in humans. So this we already have discussed. That we have discussed. Then we have discussed this table, right? TLR1, it will recognize mycobacteria or gram-negative bacteria by identifying the triacyl lipopeptides. Lipopeptide is a combination of lipid as well as proteins. TLR2, yesterday also I told you this, TLR2 will recognize the peptidoglycan cell wall in gram-positive bacteria, right? So peptidoglycan is a characteristic of gram-positive bacteria, right? So here it will recognize the gram-positive bacteria. GPA-linked proteins in trypanosomes, in some parasites, trypanosomes, it will recognize the GPA-linked proteins which are attached to the plasma membrane. Lipoproteins in mycobacteria and other proteins, zymosan in fungi. Okay, So in fungi, it will recognize this molecule, zymosin. And in schistosomes, it will recognize the phosphatidylserine, PS, phosphatidylserine. Then TLR3 will recognize the double-stranded RNA in viruses. TLR4 will recognize, the 4 is important because it will recognize gram-negative bacteria. It will recognize the lipopolysaccharide layer, which is present in gram-negative bacteria only. It recognizes F protein in the RSV virus, respiratory syncytial virus, and in fungi, it will recognize the mannans. Then TLR5 is important. This will recognize the flagellin protein in the flagella in bacteria. TLR7 and 8, they will recognize the single-stranded RNA in viruses, right? And 9 will recognize CpG repeats or CpG islands in unmethylated dinucleotides in the bacterial DNA, right? Also, it will recognize the hemojoin protein, which is a digestion product of malarial parasite, falciparum. Herpes simplex virus. Then we have discussed about the structure of these toll-like receptors. If you look into the structure, there are leucine-rich repeats, which are horseshoe-shaped like structures. So I showed you this particular diagram in last class also. They are having leucine-rich repeat in extracellular surface. Therefore, they can first of all, they will make either homodimers or heterodimers. In heterodimer condition, for example, TLR2 and 1, heterodimer will recognize lipopeptides. Whereas the homodimer TLR3 will recognize double-stranded RNA, as we had discussed in the table. So see here, many molecules involved in innate immunity has the ability to recognize the PAMs for initial detection of microbes. क्योंकि microbes की surface पे कौन होते हैं? Pattern, these pathogen associated molecular patterns, they will be recognized. PAMs are microbial specific molecular signatures. They are present over microbial cells, pathogens, therefore they are kind of signatures which are present over the surfaces. PAMs are recognized by pattern recognition receptors. These are called PRRs. Mammals have several distinct classes of these receptors. उनमें से एक है toll-like receptors. एक होते हैं IgG1-like receptor. These are also known as RLRs. Node-like receptor (NLRs), AIM2-like receptor (ALRs) and CLRs. So बहुत सारे तरह के LRs होते हैं जिनमें से हमने क्या डिस्कस करा है toll-like receptors, right? These are very very important because they recognize specifically depending upon the number of receptor. And mostly they are dimers, either homodimers or heterodimers. Among these, TLRs were first to be identified and are best characterized. So उनकी बहुत सारी studies हो चुकी हैं और therefore we know much about toll-like receptors. Toll-like receptor class of pattern recognition receptors that function exclusively as signaling molecules or signaling receptors. So because these are kind of pattern recognition receptors, so these are signaling receptors, right? It was originally identified as a protein involved in the establishment of dorsoventral polarity in developing and fly embryo. तो सबसे पहले जब इनकी डिस्कवरी हुई थी टोल लाइक रिसेप्टर्स की, तो इन्हें ड्रोसोफिला में डिस्कवर किया गया था क्योंकि ये डोर्सल वेंट्रल एक्सिस या पोलरिटी को डिटरमाइन करने के लिए रेस्पॉन्सिबल होते हैं एम्ब्रियोज में. It is also involved, however, in the adult fly resistance to fungal infection और fungal infections से होने से adult fly को बचाते हैं. TLR are type 1 integral transmembrane glycoproteins. First of all, you need to understand the glycoproteins. The glycoproteins are a combination of proteins in which you are having little carbohydrate, right? So carbohydrate portion is small, therefore it is known as glycoprotein. If it is having this glyco or carbohydrate portion large, then this is known as proteoglycans, right? So the terms are self-explanatory and you need to understand the difference between glycoprotein and proteoglycans. Each toll-like receptor is composed of an extracellular N-terminal domain and an intracellular C-terminal region. So I showed you the structure of TLR. So it is having two regions. One is extracellular, where it is having leucine-rich repeats. Intracellular, it is having a domain called TIR domain, which is responsible in signal transduction. And this is the cell membrane, right? So this is cytoplasmic side, this is extracellular side. Also, you can see here, this is having this leucine-rich repeat-like structure, and in the cytoplasm, it is having this domain called TIR domain. So the same thing is written in your Pathfinder 2. So this TLR are having this intracellular C-terminal region, which is known as TIR domain, and it is made up of 700 to 1100 amino acid residues. And terminal domain is constituted by about 16 to 28 leucine-rich repeats, LRRs. So these leucine-rich repeats are present in 16 up to 28 and has the function to recognize the PAM. भैया क्योंकि सेल के बाहर प्रेजेंट होते हैं, इसलिए ये पैथोजन एसोसिएटेड मॉलिक्यूलर पैटर्न्स को रिकॉग्नाइज करने के लिए रेस्पॉन्सिबल होते हैं. There is a second, also known as toll IL-1 receptor, TIR receptor, a domain that is present intracellularly in the cytoplasm that initiate downstream signaling. ये signaling के लिए responsible होता है जो cytoplasm में signaling को start करता है. All toll-like receptors are synthesized in the endoplasmic reticulum. अब क्वेश्चन आता है कि ये TLR सिंथेसाइज कहाँ पे होते हैं? तो सभी TLR सेल के अंदर ही एंडोप्लाज्मिक रेटिकुलम पे जहाँ पे प्रोटीन्स बनती हैं या ग्लाइकोप्रोटीन्स की प्रोसेसिंग होती है वहीं पे बनती हैं रफ एंडोप्लाज्मिक रेटिकुलम पे राइबोसोम्स. ट्रैफिक टू द गोल्जी में जाके उनके ऊपर कार्बोहाइड्रेट पोर्शंस को ऐड किया जाता है. दे विल बिकम ग्लाइकोप्रोटीन्स and are recruited to the cell surface or to the intracellular compartment in the form of endosomes. दो तरह के TLR होते हैं, एक जो सेल की सरफेस पे होते हैं जैसे TLR4, 2-1 का कॉम्बिनेशन, 2-6 का कॉम्बिनेशन हेटेरोडाइमर्स, TLR5 which will recognize the flagellin protein, TLR11. Okay, so all these are present over the surface of bacterial. Okay, so not bacterial cell. TLR are present actually over immune cells, for example, macrophages. Whereas some TLRs or toll-like receptors, pattern recognition receptors are present in the endosome or lysosome compartment, in which they are having cytoplasmic domains, and this leucine-rich repeats are present towards the lumen of the endosome or lysosome, because when the pathogen will come, they will come in this compartment. Therefore, these leucine-rich repeats will recognize the proteins or the RNA or the some other components, for example, CpG islands in the DNA, with the help of these leucine-rich repeats. Therefore, they are present inside this endosome or lysosome. For example, TLR4 can come from here and here. TLR3 is present in the form of endosome. TLR7 is present, 8 is present, 9 is present. So 3 will recognize the, so first of all, 4 will recognize the lipopolysaccharides in the gram-negative bacteria and viral proteins, right? We have studied this. TLR3 will recognize double-stranded RNA in the virus. TLR7 and 8 will recognize single-stranded RNA, and TLR9 will recognize the CpG islands in the bacterial or viral DNA. Because viral or bacterial DNA are having some repeats, these repeats are recognized by the TLR9, and these are very, very important repeats in the DNA known as CpG repeats. We are having 4 types of bases in the DNA. If they are having CpG repeats, these the phosphodiester bond in between these two nitrogenous bases, or these two nucleotides, C and G are nucleotides. So they are known as CpG repeats. If they are having this repeat, it will be recognized by the TLR9 in the endosome. All right. So all these things actually we also have discussed in previous class, right? Now, so there are 10 members from 1 to 10 in humans, and there are 12 members of TLR in mice. Actually 10 is non-functional, so TLR 1 to 9 and TLR 11 to 13, right? So they are 12 in number total. TLR localize to the cell surface or to the intercellular compartment such as endoplasmic reticulum, endosome, lysosome, endolysosome. So the combination of endosome and lysosome is called endolysosome, and they recognize distinct or overlapping pathogen-associated molecular patterns such as lipids, lipoproteins, proteins, nucleic acid, and so on. TLRs are expressed in the innate immune cells such as dendritic cells and macrophages, as well as non-immune cells such as fibroblast cells, epithelial cells, right? So they are recognized and they are expressed in the innate immune system cells. So we have discussed many types of cells, for example, dendritic cells, and main cells which show the phagocytosis are macrophages. So they are present over macrophages, right? As well as some non-immune cell also having these toll-like receptors. For example, fibroblast cells and epithelial cells also do have the toll-like receptors. Toll-like receptors are largely classified into two subfamilies based on their localization. पहला होता है सेल सरफेस पे और दूसरे होते हैं इंट्रासेलुलर TLR जो कि लाइसोसोम या एंडोसोम्स में प्रेजेंट होते हैं. In human, cell surface TLRs include TLR 1, 2, 4, 5, 6 and 10. तो ये सभी कहाँ होते हैं सेल की सरफेसेस पे, जैसे कि हमने अभी इस डायग्राम में देखा था. सेल की सरफेस पे होते हैं 5, 11, 4, right, and the heterodimers. But intracellular, they are known as TLR4, TLR3, 7, 8, 9. So these are present intracellularly. So 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 10, 11, they are present extracellularly, whereas intracellular toll-like receptors are localized in the intracellular compartments, for example, endosome, including the TLR3, 7, 8, 9. Different TLR recognize different ligands. This we know because the table is depicting this very well. Cell surface TLR mainly recognize microbial membranes components such as lipids, lipoproteins, proteins. So everything is given in this table, like lipopolysaccharide, gram-negative bacteria recognized by TLR4. Lipopolysaccharides recognized by a combination of heterodimer, that is TLR26, lipopeptides, but these are diacyl, these are triacyl, right? So TLR21. Bacterial peptidoglycan, TLR2. Bacterial lipotecoic acid, TLR2 and 6. It is very similar to the diacyl lipopeptides. So what will you do? Actually, you will be confused if you look into this table like this. So you will make another table. You will categorize all the components which will be recognized by TLR26, for example, bacterial lipotecoic acid and bacterial diacyl lipopeptides. So they are recognized by a heterodimer known as TLR2 and TLR6 combo. Whereas some will act like homodimers, and therefore they will recognize some other components. For example, flagellin protein will be recognized by the TLR5 dimer. CpG islands will be recognized by TLR9. 23S RNA in bacteria or RNA, ribosomal RNA, will be recognized by TLR13 in mice. Because in humans, the TLR13 is absent. Fungal zymosin, TLR2 and 6. So you will put all these together. Fungal mannan, they will recognize by the TLR4, which will also recognize the LPS in gram-negative bacteria. Fungal phospholipomannan, TLR2. Fungal, okay, so all these structures are able to recognize different components in the pathogens, whether it is zymosin, mannan, phospholipomannan, and so on. While double stranded RNA, TLR3, whereas CpG islands are TLR9, while single stranded RNA 7-8. Hemozoin is also recognized by the TLR9, which is the metabolic product of P. falciparum, Plasmodium falciparum, which is the causative agent of malaria. GPI anchored protein, Trypanosoma cruzi, they are recognized by the combination of heterodimers, TLR2 and 6. So you can make another table by putting all these together so that you will able to memorize whatever written in the table. Okay, so the TLR signaling consists of at least two distinct pathways. One is known as MYD88 dependent pathway that lead to the production of inflammatory cytokines. These inflammatory cytokines will be released as a result of the signaling pathway, which include MYD88. And the second is MYD88 independent pathway associated with the stimulation of interferon beta. So in the second pathway, interferon beta is very important. This is a kind of mediator and the maturation of dendritic cells. So dendritic cell, as I told you, these are the best APC cells, antigen presenting cells. Okay, so the cytokines which are released in the MYD independent pathway, they stimulate interferon beta production and maturation of dendritic cells, and then they will take over. The MYD88 dependent pathway, that was the first one, characterizes the signaling induced by all the toll-like receptors. Whereas TLR3 and 4, TLR3 will recognize the double-stranded RNA in virus. TLR4 will recognize the gram-negative bacterial lipopolysaccharide layer, right? So this LPS and double-stranded RNA shows a pathway independent from the MYD88. तो वैसे तो जितने भी TLR pathway हैं वो MYD88 dependent ही हैं, except these two, TLR3 और 4 को अगर हम leave कर दें तो. So toll-like receptor will be activated. It will recruit the adapter proteins. Adapter proteins are kind of proteins which will link, which will connect the two proteins, right? TLR proteins with some other proteins. So recruitment of activation of another protein kinases. Protein kinases are those enzymes which will phosphorylate the substrate, right? So they will phosphorylate the substrate protein. 3 amino acids are major. For example, serine, threonine, and what is the third one? So serine, threonine are the major proteins which will be phosphorylated by the protein kinase. Tyrosine can also be phosphorylated because it is having OH functional group. So the major proteins which are phosphorylated by the protein kinases are the 3 amino acids in the protein. One is tyrosine Y, threonine, and the serine. So serine, threonine, and tyrosine, they will be phosphorylated by protein kinases. Once they are phosphorylated, they will lead to the activation of transcription factors. Transcription factors will go into the nucleus and they will allow the genes to undergo transcription. Finally, the mRNA will produce, it will come out of the nucleus in the cytoplasm, translation will take place, proteins will be synthesized, and proteins, this will lead to the gene transcription, right? The transcription factors. Now you need to understand these two pathways, MYD88 dependent and MYD independent pathway. So major pathway is actually, we know this is dependent pathway because only two, TLR3 and TLR4 are showing this independent from MYD88, right? So MYD88 is the full form of myeloid differentiation factor 88, and TRIF is TIR domain containing adapter influencing interferon B and interferon beta factor, because this interferon beta is also required during the activation of this. So see here, you are having endosomes. In endosome, you may have TLR3, TLR4, TLR7, 8, 9, right? And you are having certain TLR over the surface, for example, recognizing LPS, TLR4, lipopeptides, TLR2, 1, TLR5, homodimer, recognizing the flagellin protein in the flagella. Then there is a factor, there is a domain known as MYD88. This MYD88 will be activated because it is able to bind to this cytoplasmic tail to this toll-like receptor. This is known as TIR domain. So this TIR domain will activate MYD88. Once the MYD88 is activated, it will activate certain transcription factors and molecules, right? So these protein kinases will be activated. For example, IRAK kinase, right? So these kinases will be activated. They will allow, so IRAK is already bound to this, this factor TRAF6. Once IRAK will be activated by the MYD88, the ubiquitinization will result in the destruction of TRAF6. So the TRAF6 will be removed and it will lead to the activation of IRAK. IRAK, which is a kinase, will activate another enzymes or proteins to act. So you can see this IRAK4 and 6 is present everywhere, and they finally able to recruit this ubiquitin protein over TAB, so that TAB will be ubiquitinated and proteasomally degraded. Okay, so the TAK1, which is also a kinase, which is another kinase, will be activated, and this will phosphorylate some proteins, for example, IKK alpha and IKK beta. These will be phosphorylated. Once they are phosphorylated, they will make, they will be, first of all, they will be freed from, there is a change in conformation, so that this protein NEMO will be ubiquitinated and this will be degraded, and NF kappa B will come and bind to the I kappa B, right? So which is phosphorylated. Once it is ubiquitinated, it will be degraded. So this is degraded. NF kappa B, which is a transcription factor, will enter into the nucleus through nuclear pore complex, and then it will activate certain genes for antimicrobial, cytokine production, and chemokine production. Similarly, you can see here there are certain factors, IRF7 and IRF3, which will be phosphorylated by these transcription factors, by these protein kinases, and they will enter into the nucleus to activate various genes, right? NF kappa B can also activate the interferon beta and alpha genes if there is an viral infection. And you can see from here, PI3 kinase can activate another MAP kinase pathway and AP1 protein, and finally they are able to recruit the interferon beta and alpha, so that interferon can go to the nearby cells, which so interferon alpha and beta, they are secreted by virally infected cells, and they will create a state of viral resistance in the nearby cells, surrounding cells. We have discussed TLRs, but I told you there are many different types of receptors. These can be CLR, RLR, NLR, and so on, right? So the diagram is given on page number 159. You can refer these diagrams, and the names are also written. CLR, for example, DACIN1, which will recognize some fungal glucans, fungal polysaccharides. And this is showing the signaling, how these different molecules will be activated in response to the binding of fungal glucans to the cell surface receptor. All right. देखो एक इंटरेस्टिंग डायग्राम दिया है यहाँ पे, ये जो आपकी बुक है. There are 4 individuals in this particular diagram. If you see this diagram and try to understand this, there are 4 individuals. Okay, so what they are showing? They are showing cell surface receptors in innate immune system and adaptive immune system. An innate immune system, if you see, they are very similar in all the humans. But if you look into the adaptive immune system, you see there is different color codes. And here also they are different color codes. If you see, there is no pink in this diagram, but here you are able to see this pink version of this receptor. So why there are so many differences in adaptive immune response or adaptive immune system in, from one individual, one human to another human? Because innate immune system is present since birth. Therefore, it is quite similar in all the humans. So we humans में innate immune system लगभग same होता है, क्योंकि ये जन्म से होता है. It is present since birth. लेकिन जो अडेप्टिव इम्यून सिस्टम है, वो बर्थ के बाद में हम जितने भी एक्सपोजर होते हैं, जितने भी पैथोजेंस से एनकाउंटर होते हैं, हमें जितनी भी डिजीजेस होती हैं या जितने भी माइक्रो ऑर्गेनिज्म के कांटेक्ट में हम आते हैं, उसके बेसिस पे, ये हमारे एक्सपीरियंसेस के बेसिस पे, हमारे डिजीज के बेसिस पे जो भी डिजीज हमें डेवलप होती हैं, जो भी पैथोजन हमें इंटरेक्ट करते हैं, adaptive immune system develop होता है. Therefore, there are so many differences if you compare, for example, John, Betty, Matt, and other individual, for example, this lady. So they are showing differences in the adaptive immune response or adaptive immune system because they are exposed to different number of pathogens. They are having different experiences to the diseases, therefore they are having different adaptive immune response or adaptive immune system, right? All right, so we have discussed about toll-like receptors. I also told you there are other type of receptors, and there are some proteins known as acute phase proteins. What are acute phase proteins? Acute phase proteins are some proteins which will be secreted by the liver, which are produced by the liver uh, in the acute phase of the disease. So these are heterogeneous group of plasma proteins. They are present in the plasma. They are made by liver and they are added into the blood system. Okay, so mainly produced in the liver as a result of microbial stimulus. If there is a microbial infection or stimulus, they are produced by liver. They will be added into the blood. They include C-reactive protein. The acute proteins में आते हैं उनमें हैं C-reactive proteins, serum amyloid A, SAA, mannose binding lectins or proteins, MBP. Cytokines, interleukin 1, 6, 8, etc. are released by macrophages upon activation of the bacteria, stimulate the liver to rapidly produce acute phase proteins. कुछ cytokines हैं, कुछ chemical signals हैं, जिनके response में liver in acute phase proteins को produce करता है. So these acute phase proteins are having example, for example, C-reactive proteins, serum amyloid protein A, mannose binding proteins, MBP. So cytokines are 1, 6, and 8. They are secreted by some cells, and the liver cell make acute phase protein in response to these cytokines, and these acute phase proteins, once produced from the liver, they are added into the bloodstream. So they are present in the blood in an inactive form. These proteins maximize activation of complement system and opsonization of the invading microorganisms. अब इनका रोल क्या है, ये प्रोटीन किस काम आती हैं भाई? ये दो काम है इसके, मैक्सिमाइज एक्टिवेशन, एक्टिवेशन जो है हमारे कॉम्प्लीमेंट सिस्टम का. एज आई टोल्ड यू, देयर इज अनदर कंपोनेंट of our immune response known as complement system. Complement proteins are C1, C2, C3 up to C9, right? And they will help in these proteins. Acute phase protein, first of all, they activate the complement system, which will help in degradation of microorganisms. Second is opsonization. Opsonization is a process in which antibodies will help in the destruction of bacteria, because antibodies will coat some microorganism, and the complete complex antibody antigen complex will be uptaken by the phagocytic cells so that they can engulf them, they can degrade them. So I'm having one diagram trying to show you. So see this. In this diagram, you are able to see that there are, so this is a macrophage, a big cell that is called macrophage or phagocytic cell. It is having engulfing some bacteria, which is small in size and which is coated with some antibodies. These radicular antibodies, Y-shaped molecules, are antibodies. So antibody coating this antigen, and the complete complex is uptaken by a phagocyte or the macrophage. Process is known as opsonization, in which in this process these antibodies will act like opsons because they will coat an antigen and coat an pathogen, right? And finally, this complex is will bind to the antibody will bind to the receptor which are present over these phagocytic cells, and they will develop some pseudopody-like structures and uptaking this complete complex and degrade inside the macrophage. This will degrade this complex. So guys, that's all for today.